Okay, so one econometric study said, why are the Chinese doing this? Why are they so aggressive about ISO 14001? You can imagine with these big statistics in China that a lot of academics are studying China, to see what's going on, why are they doing it, and so on. So this was a study of 127 Chinese firms. When you ask, surveyed the managers and so on, the key drivers were ensuring regulatory compliance, even though government enforcement is weak. Regulatory compliance helps you with ISO. So who knows, but they call it internal. Risk management capability, because, when you start paying attention to your wastes and the hazardous materials in your firm, this is helping you with your risk management strategies. And then enhancing staff capabilities. For example, if you start trying to figure out innovative ways to drive down costs for environment related to water supply, energy, and so on, your staff gets better. External drivers, these are what you would imagine. Customer requests. So think about Pakistan. Customer requests. So if you're trading with a big clothing manufacturer in Europe, and the clothing manufacturer says, by the way, we want all our suppliers to be ISO 14001. You have no choice. I mean, if you want to continue to work with that particular business customer. Other stakeholders, aside from, firms in the supply chain, and also reputation. A lot of firms will get certified, and then if you ask them, they'll say, well, we wanted to be able to have this in our advertising. Like if you go on the internet and you start looking up firms, often you'll see on their site, they'll say, we're ISO 14001 certified. International NGO campaigns. These are kind of fun because they're kind of interesting, fun in the sense of interesting. Look, this is what I do for a living. I mean, what a job that you enjoy, right? So I took this example because it's kind of colorful. It's a textile factory in China. The Greenpeace has a detox campaign in China. So this all started with a textile plant that was supplying 14 major brands. Hormone disruptors. Have you heard about endocrine disruptors? Endocrine disruptors have had, for example, you have fish growing with 2 heads, frogs with 3 legs, this kind of thing. All the studies that have been done with animals. It's in the water supply. Because people take Prozac, they go to the bathroom. It's my livelihood. I'm an engineer. Environmental engineer. People go to the bathroom, really, they do. And what happens is, what winds up in the water supply is what people are eating and drinking. So people taking a lot of medications and so on, it's in the water supply. As environmental engineers, we don't know very well how to deal with that. It's going to be expensive treatment, and we really haven't faced it because the stuff is not regulated. So there's not a lot of pressure to deal with it. But it's, and we only have animal studies. We don't have any studies on humans. But anyway, that's what was coming out of this plant. Hormone disruptors. So Greenpeace issued a challenge. And it said, all of the multinationals that are unaware of their hazardous chemicals discharge in their supply chains. Because they probed the multinationals that were buying for companies like this, and they said, do you know what's in your... They said, no, we don't know. Why would we know? We just get the product. We're not investigating what's going on the ground in that particular plant. So Greenpeace introduced what they call the detox challenge, where they wanted the multinationals, the big firms, to work with their suppliers to eliminate toxic chemicals, toxic releases. And in 2012, so you see this is all very current. In 2012, several of these big firms, Adidas, CNA, and several others, issued a joint roadmap, and their joint roadmap was how are we going to get in 2020 to zero discharge of hazardous chemicals in our supply chains. That's a huge challenge to go, because, you know, the thing is, you go one tier down, you haven't done it. I mean, there are so many. If you ever look at the supply chain, for example, what's your name? Michelle, you see that scarf? I mean, there are going to be hundreds of firms in the supply chain for that scarf. If you look, what's it made of? Cotton, maybe? Rayon? Cotton. Cotton scarf, hundreds. You know, they're out there. If you look at them, it looks like a big web. All of the firms that are involved in the supply chain. So you can go one tier down is easy. You start going lower, it's a nightmare. You know, and I talk to company officials and say, well, what are you doing about your supply chain and so on? And they say, well, you know, it's almost like you're asking a question about HR. They hate that stuff. It's hard, you know, you got to fire people, you know, it's miserable. You know, they don't like it. You say, well, what about your supply? Oh, the same category. We hate that too. Because it's so hard, you know. It's just so difficult because they have so many suppliers. Now, unless you are a student of Chinese affairs, you wouldn't know, but there are protests, massive protests about pollution in China all the time. All the time. It's hard to, you know, read the international press without seeing, you know, at least occasionally some massive protest in China. But it's going on all the time in China. And here are a couple of photos. I think I have one case for you. You know, this is, it could have gone on and on with cases, but this is a crowd of people surrounding this solar facility in Haining in China City. Here we are. Citizen protest. Well, we can't see that too well. Was I supposed to shut off lights? I've been getting on so far.
You need to leave them.
Better to leave them on, yeah, because otherwise, first of all, they're hungry, and also the students are also going to fall asleep. So we shut this off. Bad combination. You know, it's late, and they're hungry, and also tired. Anyway, so, you know, people getting hit over the head, that sort of thing. This is some of the basic facts. A suspected leak of fluorides from the warehouse. There was a fish kill. A fish kill is when all of a sudden, you know, fish looked perfectly happy yesterday, now they're all dead. It's a fish kill. Cancer cases. The plant was closed because of the protest, but then quietly reopened. So, you know, these things happen. It's hard to say whether anything was done. There are domestic NGOs in China that are also pushing. And I picked my favorite here. This Institute of Public Affairs and Environmental Affairs is run by a gentleman by the name of Ma Zheng, who, you know, I think he's probably a 30-something-year-old who had this idea of a way to improve environmental quality in China is through information, making public information that is hard to get, using modern technology, using the internet, and interactive maps. So what he did was to found an NGO that puts this kind of a, well, you know, the particulars, first of all, it's in Chinese. Second of all, it's not important. But the point is, if you go on the internet and you're Chinese, you can click on this and go down levels to the point where you're actually able to find firms. And inside the firms, you're able to identify what their wastes are, whether they're in violation or not, you see? And then you can put pressure, because China has a law since 1988, it's called the Administrative Litigation Law, that allows citizens to enforce environmental laws using the courts. So, you know, in our neighborhood, we could say, oh, I think that factory is polluting. And if there's data that has been summarized, it's online, it's free for any group of citizens to use or any individual citizen to use, and people do use it. And Ma Zheng and his institute, they go further. They have teamed with other firms to create a consortium, not other firms, other NGOs. These are all Friends of Nature, I think, is probably the most important. Last time I checked, a few years ago, they were the most important environmental NGO in China. It was started by a group of journalists to share information, and now has become a real force. But they are working together with this institute that I mentioned and some other environmental NGOs in China to assemble information and put pressure on European and the more industrialized OECD countries to deal with suppliers that are in violation in China. Because now they have data, and they go to Nike, for example, and say, oh, by the way, do you know that this firm that supplies you is issuing arsenic into the watercourse? And we'll be quiet about it for a little while, but we want you to do something. So they've been pretty effective. They don't like Apple because Apple doesn't cooperate with them, this consortium. They don't like Apple. And so they issued a report, the other side of Apple, and shows pollution spreading through Apple's supply chain. This is a map of some of, here's the, this is from the New York Times. That's the headline, Apple cited as adding to pollution in China, 2011. And then the article also mentioned the report, so I looked up the report. This is the cover of the report. Dark Apple. Yes. Where?
Can get data from supplier from Apple. How they can get data?
Oh, okay. So if you're a firm in China, you are required to work with the Environmental Protection Bureau. And by now, some of the data is available publicly. And what Ma Zheng has done is to assemble the publicly available information. He hasn't, I mean, the Environmental Protection Bureaus in China have a lot of data they don't share. But there is some data that is publicly available. And more, as these NGOs, these domestic NGOs put pressure on the Environmental Protection Bureaus, more and more data is becoming available. So what this is like a startup. This is like an NGO startup where this fellow Ma Zheng gets his idea. He says one of the big problems here is information. So if we can assemble information and make it readily available, then citizens will be able to use it, and other NGOs will be able to use it and apply pressure at certain key points. And that's the strategy, that's the whole business model. And they have a lot of foundation support and things like that. Yeah.
You talked about pressure from other companies,
Yeah.
NGOs, but maybe also because in 2008 China opened itself to the internet,
Yeah.
and so people were able to see a little bit more about China and the exchanges, and so maybe it could have been interesting to see if the competition, not the competition, but the pressure went up since 2008.
Yeah.
Started with the launching of internet.
Yeah, my intuition is that you're right. That first of all, this particular website wouldn't be possible before 2008. But in addition, there is so much traffic on there. Certain blogs, Chinese blogs. Talk about the Chinese blogs and how you all are just getting around and so on.
It will be categories, but
Here.
actually,
Please. Enjoy yourself. It's fair. It's a free country. You can say whatever you want.
actually, I think I have found many interesting blogs that was just written by some people. They do they do things like this kind of NGOs and they share information, and but I don't think they're because I don't search so much about this, so I'm not sure whether they are just in a specific way or.
You mean about environment?
Yeah, I mean in the field of environment. Yeah, yeah. But there are no there are no specific platform for environment blogs.
Oh,
Yeah.
not yet.
Ah,
It's a good idea for a startup.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.